right. Well, welcome back to your school year. I'm sure we're all tired from the first week of school, but let's jump right in. So this is your first podcast, and this is going to be probably the longest podcast that you're going to have because I'm going to go over some procedural stuff. Other than that, it's going to be a short recording, just covering the vocabulary words we're going to go over for the week. But let's get started with our Rome introduction. Before we get started, here's some procedural stuff. Each unit is going to have a big idea. You're going to see this slideshow I'm using right now in class, but I'm going to quickly go over some of the things. Actually, for you, it's going to be a review because I'm going to go over the stuff first in class, and this podcast we're going to do a little bit backwards, and then you're going to review it at home. So first of all, we're going to have a big idea for every unit, and your big idea is basically a theme for that unit. So each unit's going to have its own big idea. In this case, in Rome, the big idea is the influence of an empire often lives on even after that empire falls or declines. So we're going to just, throughout the unit, be addressing that topic. And again, I'm going to skip through some of these things because we will have already covered it in class. Second, you'll have essential questions. And I say questions, here I have one, but for every unit, you're going to have several essential questions. It could be 2, it could be 3, probably no more than 5 for each unit. And so for parts of the unit, we'll look at things like, in Rome, how do empires become powerful and influential? For all this beginning stuff of Rome for this week, this is the essential question we are going to look at. Here are the rest of our essential questions. Did the benefits of Roman expansion outweigh the costs? To what extent have the contributions of ancient Rome influenced modern society? And finally, what internal and external factors lead to the downfall of empires? And we'll break those up and cover those for each section of our unit. Now, whenever you get one of these, and again, I will cover this in class already, one of these documents, whether it's a hyperdoc or just a presentation or a slide book that you'll be getting, I will generally try to highlight the vocabulary words in orange or right there in orange, so you'll know that when you see those are words that you really need to know. Also, this is your podcast, and it will be replaced by the old podcast here by the time you get this. And podcasts, generally, you'll get one a week. In the beginning, you might get 2, and it's just for you to listen to and go over the vocabulary words that you are going to need to know for that section of the unit. And after you have a podcast, you will have a quiz on those vocabulary words. And maybe the next day, it may be at the end of the week, but you will know that on Monday when it's assigned to you, when you will see that vocabulary development quiz. Now, let's get into Rome and the Republic. I'm just going to cover the intro to this lesson, and then we're going to continue it in class. First of all, let's get your ISN set up. I've already told you what pages you're going to use. I believe they're going to be pages 2 and 3 for this, but you will have known that in class, or I will tell you that in class if you're watching this before I see you. So for this part of your ISN, we're going to set up our vocabulary here on the left. The vocabulary for this week, for this section, is Empire, Republic, Julius Caesar, Augustus Caesar, Pax Romana, Punic Wars. And we may not always cover these in this order. For instance, I think we're going to talk about Punic Wars before we even talk about Julius Caesar and Augustus. So sometimes this order will jump around. And for your lesson on this page, we're going to look at the difference between Rome being a kingdom and when it changed to a republic. So let's get started with your intro. First of all, Rome is said to be founded by twins brothers, Romulus and Remus. Romulus and Remus were said to have been the sons of priestess Rhea Silvia and the Roman god of war Mars. They were abandoned at birth and thrown into the Tiber River. They were then rescued by a she-wolf, where she went on to feed them and nurse them to health, where they were later found by a shepherd. They went on to start to found Rome in area of the cave where the she-wolf took them in. So that's the legend of how Rome actually started. Rome is located here, you can see, on the Italian peninsula. If you don't know what a peninsula is a landform that is surrounded on three sides by water. You can see Rome right here. I know this is kind of pixelated, but you can see it here, kind of in the center. It's very close to the Mediterranean Sea. It's bordered by the Apennines Mountains, and here you can see a little bit the Tiber River, which the Apennines Mountains and the Tiber River bordering either side make it help keep it safe from invaders. Also, being on the Tiber River and on the Mediterranean, it makes it easy to trade goods. So Rome does become a center of trade. The climate in Italy is a lot like California climate. We actually both have what's called Mediterranean climate, where it's cool, relatively cool. It gets kind of warm in summer, but not too hot. Dry summers, though, and then relatively mild. Yes, it does get a little bit cool, a little bit cold in places during the wintertime, but not really crazy freezing of the entire place. So it's really good for farming and really good for growing different types of plants and things like that. In the beginning, Rome was a kingdom, and a kingdom is an area that's ruled by a king. It had several kings, and finally the kingdom ended with a harsh ruler named Tarquin. The people were fed up with how he ruled. He was really harsh on the people. He punished them. He did things they didn't like. So they overthrew Tarquin, the people did, and they created a republic. And a republic is a government run by the people. A republic is a representative type of government where the people elect officials to do the jobs for them or to make decisions for them. Sound kind of familiar? It should. We live in the United States in a democratic republic. Now, the Roman Republic was made up of something called a Senate. And that worked a lot like the Senate that we have today. The Roman Senate was made up of the patrician or upper class landowners. Senators served until their death. Senators were selected by consuls. There were two consuls at the head of the Senate. The consuls were voted on by all of the citizens of Rome. The last part of the republic was the assembly. This was elected from the plebeians or the lower class citizens and had no real power. They did, however, make up the largest number of citizens in Rome. Now, we're going to cover these three things later on in the week. We're going to touch on the Punic Wars, a series of wars with Rome and Carthage. Julius Caesar, who was a military general and became consul of Rome and started turning Rome from a republic into an empire. We're going to learn more about how the corruption of the government and everything that was happening. Julius Caesar was actually assassinated on the Senate floor. He was stabbed several times. And then his adopted son, Augustus, went on to become an emperor. That's actually the first emperor of Rome. And we're going to learn how that happened in a different lesson. But he went on to become emperor and ruled during a time known as Pax Romana, which is when Rome, another vocabulary word, which is when Rome was at its height. But that's all you really need to know for this podcast. So if you need to go back and re-listen to this, by all means do so and know these vocabulary words. At the end of the week, you will have a quiz on all of the orange words on here. And you can go back and look at the list from your ISN. And that's it. We'll see you in the next lesson.